Hello, hello, how are you? Sean Ferrick here for TrekCulture, and we are jumping straight into the ups and downs for the second to last episode of Season 4 of Lower Decks. Before we jump into there, I have a couple of things to let you know. For example, October the 28th is Star Trek Prodigy Day, and we will be celebrating with a few different bits coming out throughout the day, including a specially recorded podcast with Aaron Waltke himself. So he has been a good friend to the channel, so we're really looking forward to showing you that. We also, of course, have our episode with Liz Klukowski, which is currently out. Liz did that, little thing of, bringing back the Enterprise D bridge. It's a cool episode, so make sure that you check that one out as well. Now, let us jump right in to this episode. Season 4, Episode 9 is called The Inner Fight. Now, obviously we're getting a play on the title The Inner Light, but don't go expecting any cameos from Cayman because it is about a totally different thing altogether, and I have thoughts. First, the cold open. This scene, as was always going to happen, an up goes to T'Lyn just for being in the episode really, but Gabrielle Ruiz is once again, brilliant in the role. Doesn't have as much to do this week, but still very important in the role that she plays. This episode effectively sets out to explain why Mariner has been acting the way that she's been acting. And I have said earlier on in this season that it was quite frustrating to see what I felt was character, reversion, just going back on the development that Mariner had made. My opinion hasn't changed. So we'll get into the reasoning behind that now, but we see in this opening scene Mariner's reckless nature, again, actually costs an officer his eyes, or not an officer, but a scientist his eyes. And yes, obviously accidental, and she was trying to help the force field that's surrounding this scientific base as they, study these murderous little cute creatures. Whoopsie 2, the sequel, anyone? Mariner goes out by herself to fix this fence, which she does, which is great, and then comes back in, but she's accidentally brought one in with her, which then launches itself at this scientist, and as he warned them that, they can cause your eyes to pop out of their skull. Which then happens. Okay, he doesn't die, we don't believe so anyway, but this is extreme injury that was caused by Mariner's reckless actions. So that to me is a down. As we get into the episode proper, we see that Boimler, T'Lyn, Rutherford, and Tendi have been summoned to the observation lounge because Captain Freeman has noticed. That is an up. Okay, it's an up for me that Freeman has noticed that Mariner's behavior it's gone to the extreme now. And, you get the impression that, well, of course she cares, it's her daughter, but more than that, it is affecting the crew, it's affecting the ship, but it's affecting Freeman. And she is concerned that this mission that the Cerritos has been assigned to, which I'll get to now in a moment, will only go even further into pushing Mariner's reckless nature and endangering people. And that is, well, frankly, it's both good captaining and it's good parenting, that she wants to take care of her in that respect, or at the very least, not put her in a position of danger. So that is a big up from me in this scene. There was a question that myself and Chris were having as we were going through the review of this, and to detail it fully, I have to just wait a little while because it will come back into a conversation that we're going to have in a little bit. Mariner, Boimler, T'Lyn, and Tendi are sent off to Sherbal V because a communications buoy has stopped transmitting, and this seems like it's going to be the simplest mission in the world. Or of course, Mariner's like, great, cool, who are we shooting? What's happening here? Meanwhile, Rutherford, Freeman, and Shax are going off to New Axton, where they believe they will be able to purchase information on one Nick Locarno. Badoom. Okay, so Nick Locarno is in this episode. A spoiler, but why are you watching this if you haven't seen it? So first of all, that's an up from me. Also, I want to give another up just to this scene as well, because the Cerritos has been assigned to find Nick Locarno, because he is one of several ex-Starfleet officers that the ship that's been, well, kidnapping the Bynars, the Orions, the Romulans, the Klingons, is now going after ex-Starfleet officers. And so 4 names in particular have been singled out. They are 7 of 9, Beverly Crusher, Nick Locarno, and taken up Thomas Riker. This episode has confirmed for us that Thomas Riker survived his internment at the Locarno 2 camp. Quick history, that Thomas Riker is of course the transporter clone of William T. Riker, who then left Starfleet, joined the Maquis, stole the Defiant, but gave himself up in exchange for the lives of his crew. Now, we may have assumed that when Cardassia joined the Dominion, Thomas would have been put up against a wall and shot. Apparently he wasn't. So thank you, Star Trek Lower Decks, for confirming that he's still alive. So yeah, that's an up. He doesn't appear, so basically I'm just giving it up to a name on a plate. But no, because this is about the Cerritos has been tasked with finding, as I say, Nick Locarno. Freeman, Rutherford, and Shax go down to New Axton in an attempt to find information on Locarno. Now, up Rutherford. The simple fact that he is on this mission with Freeman and Shax shows just how high of an opinion that they have of him. You know, it's not to say that they have a lower opinion of Boimler, Tendi, and T'Lyn by sending them off with Mariner. You know, Freeman knows that they can handle Mariner. Rutherford has been tasked with getting the information for this highly sought after person. To us, that suggests an enormous amount of confidence in this character. And that to me is definitely an up. Back at Sherbal V, Mariner has correctly assessed that there's no excitement in this mission at all. This is boring. And so, you know, they're a bit chuffed really when they get into the shuttlecraft and they're about to fly away, except for the fact that a Klingon bird of prey decloaks and destroys it. That's it. Mariner, Boimler, T'Lyn, and Tendi have been written out of Lower Decks. Yeah, okay, no, they beam down to the surface. And then the Klingons fly away, thinking that they have destroyed a Federation shuttle. Now, act of war? Anyone? Gee, I sure hope they're renegade Klingons. They escape by beaming down to the planet. Thank you, Tendi, for some very quick thinking. And immediately they discover they're not alone. They hear the sounds of someone off in the distance. And Mariner starts to speak about how, you know, she wants to make sure that she can establish herself as the apex predator. And, you know, she's ready to engage and she stands up and she shouts and down. This is not just recklessness. This is dangerous. They haven't assessed the situation. They don't know what's out there. And once again, she's putting lives in jeopardy. Again, although we get an explanation, I don't think it covers putting lives in jeopardy. And that's not the Mariner that we've seen before. We have seen Mariner push the rules. And we have seen Mariner, you know, flout authority, but Mariner is about saving lives, not ending them. So this, to me, seems a bit out of character. On this planet, they discover Ferengi, Romulans, Cardassians, Bynars, Orions. It's because, of course, this is where some, we learn, of the kidnapped and transported ships' crews or members of their crews have been dumped. Before we get a full explanation, we see Mariner taking on some Cardassians with T'Lyn, and T'Lyn, you know, she ends it quickly. She uses a Vulcan nerve pinch, as you would. And Mariner's like, oh, I totally could have taken that. And T'Lyn is like, I have no doubt that you would have tried. I love T'Lyn's sass. That's an up. Gabrielle Ruiz is just, she's perfect at it. Perfect. The truth eventually comes out when they find shelter for the night, which is effectively hiding up a tree. You know, worked in Jurassic Park. They basically tell Mariner, look, we were ordered to keep you out of trouble. She doesn't take it very well. It's T'Lyn who breaks the news, and quite frankly, it was probably right that T'Lyn broke the news. You know, and Tendi and Boimler are like, look, we care about you. We can see that there's something going on with you. Mariner could disregards it out of hand. Like, no, we'll wake up in the morning when everyone's not being dicks. Everyone just go to sleep. You know, she sort of, you know, waits for them to drop off, and then, oh, I'm so sorry. she wakes up, she begins to sneak away, but she steps over Boimler, who goes, "Oh, teach me how to tap dance, Beverly Crusher." Up. Very close to being my Latinum up of the week, I will say that. But that was an up. Loved it. She is sneaked away. Back at New Axton, Freeman, Shax, and Rutherford are trying and failing to get into Mudd's bar to try and get information on Locarno. This is after they've been delayed in orbit, and then this mean-looking bounty hunter is just getting ahead of them at all turns. You know, gets down to the planet quicker, gets into the bar quicker. And Freeman, you walked up to the door in full Starfleet uniform. How did you not think? So, you know, I mean, gosh, I wonder if there's some sort of ulterior or secondary plan here. They get inside this bar and they approach the seller of information on Locarno, and it turns out to be a deep cut into Star Trek's history, because we get reference to the puppet of Baylock that was in the Corbomite maneuver. We're talking early doors original series here. And of course, we're all expecting it to be a puppet, which means we also sort of expect it's not going to be a puppet, is it? And of course it isn't. And the whole scene is just ridiculous, and I loved it. And of course, Freeman doesn't get the information, as we knew she wouldn't, but the fact that they turned the puppet into a real alien. Up. Back on Sherbal V, right, here is the big scene. Mariner discovers that one of the people on the planet is, of course, a Klingon. He is the one who was making the noise that they heard upon arrival, and they quickly engage in a fight that has to be interrupted because the sky naturally starts raining glass, as you do. And so they dive for cover, and they say that they will pause their battle until the sky clears up because the cave is too small to have an accurate amount of combat. And then there follows probably the best scene in the episode. So the entire scene, the conversation between the Klingon and Mariner, that is definitely an up. I think this is a very, very, very good exchange between these two characters. You can probably hear the hesitation in my voice. Now, the Klingon challenges Mariner as to, you know, what do you do? What is it you're here for? And Mariner finally explains why she has been acting the way that she has. It's because she's got the promotion. Here's my frustration. And it's not just the fact that she's acting this way from a promotion. I could make the argument that, look, she was promoted before, this didn't happen, but that was only for one episode in Lower Decks. Obviously, she had been a Lieutenant Junior grade before this and was demoted, but in Lower Decks, we've seen her be promoted and knocked back down again. My issue is the reason why. And I'm sorry to say that I never thought I would say this. Sito Jaxa is actually a down for me in this episode. The namesake of this entire show, Lower Decks, is of course the fabulous episode of the 7th season of The Next Generation, which itself is a semi-sequel to the 5th season episode, The First Duty. That character of Sito Jaxa had been involved in the Academy cover-up, the accident that ended up with Joshua Albert's death. Of course, Nick Locarno was in that episode, the only time previous to this that we saw him, and of course Wesley Crusher as well. Sito would then be put back a year in the Academy, but eventually would get posted on the Enterprise, where she earned the respect of all around her, was unfortunately then killed in a mission where she was to spy with the Cardassians and trying to come back, and she was killed on the way back. Mariner lists her friendship with Sito at the Academy as the defining reason as to why she doesn't want the responsibility of being a Lieutenant Junior grade. She doesn't want the responsibility of ordering other people to their deaths. In a way, it's evocative of Pike's very first appearance in The Cage. He said he's tired of deciding who lives and who dies. So you're wondering, Sean, why on earth are you giving this a down? It's because for us, it being Sito, it just feels more like a name drop. You know, this could be any character. And the fact that it's Sito is because, well, it's a Locarno episode, so of course we'll bring Sito back as well. And then it makes you think of Wesley, Locarno, Sito, the other one, you know, and you're kind of like, why? Why did it have to be Sito? And not just because we don't want the reference to the character, of course we do, but it also dates Mariner as quite, she was in the academy then late 2360s. We know that she was serving sometime between 2371 and 2375. Apparently she did she was at least on DS9, probably serving on the USS Quito, the Olympic class ship that we saw earlier on. And it sort of muddies up her timeline. Maybe Mariner is just older than we think she is, which is fine. I mean, we know she's been promoted and knocked back a few times. That itself is not the end of the world. This being such a formative part of her life feels like something that wasn't originally the plan. It feels like it was just included so that another name could be dropped in this episode, which is a shame, because the scene, as I say, the scene is brilliant. And it's really good. It does explain, why Mariner, although yes, I'm frustrated that it's season 4 we're getting this, it does explain why she is being the way that she's being. But the fact that it was Sito Jaxa, if she knew Sito, then she knew Nick. That's pretty much a given. And maybe you can make the argument she met Sito after the accident, maybe. There were no breadcrumbs left throughout the season that would lead us to Sito Jaxa. We had breadcrumbs that led us to T'Lyn. We had the introduction of T'Lyn in Wage Douche, and then there was little bits here and there. Consider as well Rutherford's implant. We had things like Badgie along the way. We had this entire duality with Rutherford inside his head that led us to Buenamigo and the Texas class. For this one, it doesn't really feel like this was always the plan. Think about before when we had Mariner butting heads with Ransom and, claiming like, I don't know why I'm acting this way. We had with Quim as well, again, why are you acting this way? This is out of character. And saying this is out of character, but not really giving us a reason or even a clue as to why, it doesn't make it feel like this was a planned inclusion of a character. There is actually something to be said for Captain Freeman knowing enough to send Mariner away from Nick Locarno without specifically naming that. I might actually give a wee up to that one, because this does suggest to me that Freeman is at least aware that Locarno would be a bit of a bad influence on Mariner. As the episode goes along, we realize that yes, Locarno and Mariner know each other. That could have been done without the mention of Sito Jaxa. What's the egg that's one egg too many? There it is. Now, you'll be happy to know I'm slightly more positive about the rest of the episode. Love the idea of Mariner and her new Klingon friend, but quite quickly they sort of force everyone into working beside each other. You have Ferengi fighting Orions fighting Romulans, Bynars are there. And it's quite fun. It's also fun to see all these races together. But I mean, what is brilliant, Mariner steps out of the bushes and goes, right, I'm calling a timeout on this. The Orion captain goes, oh, Starfleet, you're worse than the Romulans. The Romulan just goes, hey, up. They start talking with Mariner, and the Bynar chips in with Bynar language. I'm going to assume Chris put a really cool Bynar language bit there. Yeah, Mariner just goes, oh, too true, man. Love it. I'm simple. I love those kind of gags. That's enough for me. The Orion stops attacking when Tendi, mistress of the winter constellations, when it suits her, arrives and says, you attack her, you attack my house. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, we're good. No, we're good. We're all friends here. It's fine. So go quietly. They're working together. It's fun. We're gonna rejig this control station for the buoy and turn it into a distress call. And that's when we get the revelation. The people who are stranded on the planet were placed there by members of their own crew who then mutinied. Now that's a big revelation. So we got a hint of that in, Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. So we did get a hint of that. We saw that at least one of the Ferengi knew something was going to happen. And we see up in orbit that the mystery ship is sat alongside the Klingon bird of prey. So that That is very interesting. So we knew that the ships weren't being destroyed because that was exposed with Agamas. So the fact that, yes, there was people working on board, interesting. Unfortunately, Mariner gets beamed away before they can do anything with that information. And although some of them are like, okay, yeah, so she's just, okay, we're screwed. She's in on the plan. But thankfully, the Klingon is just like, no, she's with honor. I have a plan. It's quite a good plan as well, actually. So in a kind of a side-by-side scene, Freeman reveals that actually her plan, which initially looked like a really bad plan, was that faceless bounty hunter was Billups all along. So, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But why they had to... She was going to... It sort of hinges on the idea that this Baylock alien wasn't going to give the information to anyone, but she had to annoy him sufficiently that he would sell the information to the first person who asked, who wasn't Starfleet. And yeah, listen, it's a needlessly complicated plan that was possibly included to fill out time. But yeah, it was fun. Billups is the one under the helmet, makes a gag about how, it gets really stuffy under those helmets, and just quickly fixes his hair. Oh, taken up. Billups is so cute. And it reveals the location of Locarno. Sidebar, where did they get that bounty hunter ship from? Did they just have that lying around? And if so, why? Freeman, Rutherford, Shax, and Billups arrive at Locarno's lair. At the same time, the Klingon seems to have taken command of the remaining people aboard the planet, has jury-rigged this station to send out a distress signal, which then alerts the Klingon bird of prey in orbit. Like, uh-oh, we've got to destroy that. They have to fly down, they can't locate and lock on, so they do, these people get on board, and there is just a hilariously brutal scene where the Klingon seems to like eat the guy, possibly tears his throat out with his teeth. And there's just everyone's faces, including the Klingons, are all just like, oh god. That was enough for me. It's Halloween, I'm allowed to think. So then the big reveal is that Rutherford sees the schematics for the mysterious ship in Locarno's lair, cut to Mariner waking up on board said ship, opening the door, and there, of course, is Nick Locarno, who I have already upped, but Robert Duncan McNeill, returning to the role of Nick Locarno nearly 40 years later, take a latinum up for me. This is, of course, the second time that Robert Duncan McNeill has been in Star Trek Lower Decks. We had Tom Paris earlier on, but Nick Locarno, now that's a deep cut, and I'm very interested to see where they go with this. Now that brings us up to the end of the episode, because then we hit a to be continued after Locarno says, you and me are going to mess some people up and cause some trouble. So let's go to cetacean observations. Now, at the science station, we have those green science officer uniforms that we've seen before. Blood is a corrosive acid. Oh, if that isn't a reference to H.R. Giger's famous design, I don't know what is. Although the creatures look very different, as described, they're very like Moopsy, the sequel. The Venom suits that they're wearing are very similar to the original series EVA suits. Just as the doors open and close when Mariner's coming back in, if you look at that rock formation behind, I mean, it's basically Vasquez rocks. On board the Cerritos, we have one member of the crew who seems to be wearing Wesley Crusher's jumpsuit from early seasons. We get a shout back to Ferenginar. There's a talk about where Mariner thought she was going to fight a Borg. We get Seven, Crusher, Thomas Riker, Nick Locarno. The Vancouver has been assigned to find Beverly Crusher. With those names being included as well, consider the year in which this episode is taking place, 2382, 2381. So Beverly Crusher is at least heavily pregnant with Jack Crusher at this point. And if he's been born, it's certainly pre-Cockney accent. 7 of 9, on the other hand, we're still a few years off her mercy killing of Icheb, which means she may possibly, well, no, if she's ex-Starfleet now, that means she's been drummed out of Starfleet despite Janeway already going to bat for her. You'd think they would have been better to her. So anyway, Seven might already be one of the Fenris Rangers at this point. T'Lyn talks about a variance of 2.47 at one point. Not an egg, I just really like the Klingon theme that they've written for Lower Decks. The text on the console of the guards at New Axton is something that it's very like Ferengi or Cardassian type symbols. We've definitely seen very much like it before. We get a Klingon bird of prey. On the planet, of course, there's a Ferengi, a Romulan. They talk about Latinum. New Axton seems to be... I get strong Mos Eisley feels off this one. I feel like that's probably deliberate, and I really like it.
Do you know what, actually, thinking further on it, and I agree with our friend the Kelvington on Twitter as well, there's a lot of Star Wars references in this episode. I mean, there's the whole Mos Eisley cantina, but also, if you think of the control bunker on the planet, I mean, we are getting serious Return of the Jedi vibes from that. Don't you agree? And, you know, we're getting also, if you look at the design of Sherbal V, it's got a bit of a Dagobah feel to it, right? What do you think?
On that planet, there is, you know, on the same shuttle as them, there's a Cation, a Temerian, a Gorn. Muds is the name of the bar, which is great. There's another Gorn in there, another Ferengi walking what seems to be a dog. There's a couple of Andorians, a Bajoran is walking around, a Bolian, a Klingon, a Galardornian. The same alien race as Narj is trying to encourage people to go into Zorkis. There's an Adosian as well, because actually there's a special deal for tripods today, or tripeds as opposed to tripods. Anyway, there's Cardassians as well. Teach me how to tap dance, Beverly. The dancing doctor, amazing. The Klingons have pink blood, of course. We get the reference to Sito Jaxa. And she served on the Enterprise. I was a little bit harsh earlier on by calling her the other one. Jean Hajar, of course, is the other cadet who was in the first duty. And now is the only one who has not turned up in some other way again. But never forget the Vorta, Jem'Hadar, Stovacor, the Baylock puppet, which I just, again, thought was brilliant. It seems to be an Arconian sitting at the bar as well behind them. The big, of course, final citation observation of the week is Nick Locarno. But if you look at his jacket, the logo seems to be the Colvord Starburst itself. That's an up. In Locarno's lair, covered over with a tarp, is what looks like a variation on the Starfleet Academy flight trainer. If you think it doesn't have the, what would you call them? Wings, if you like. It just sort of ends in those rounded bits. I've even seen some people go, is that a Delta Flyer? Or, you know, a variation on like a really little Defiant class. But I think in the context of the scene, it's most likely a variant of the Academy flight trainer. What did you think of this week's episode? I think this one is, you know, it's not my favorite episode, but it was very interesting. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes with the Sob final episode next week. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Make sure, by the way, that when you're following us on Twitter, there will be a poll that will be going up timey-wimey. I'm not exactly sure if it's already up as I'm saying this to you, but it will be to help pick the episodes for the first retro ups and downs, which will be coming very, very soon. So make sure that you vote in that to see that your favorite becomes the first episode. Don't forget to follow us over on Twitter at TrekCulture. We are over on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. We're also on Blue Sky at TrekCulture as well. And remember, check out our podcast, all of the usuals. Folks, thank you so much. Thank you for watching along. Thank you for your support. Thanks for being you. Make sure that you live long and prosper. Our friends in Ukraine, Slava Ukrainia. And to everyone out there who is just reading every news headline with increasing horror every single day, remember, things only change if we make them change, okay? So try and put out kindness into the world. Put out peace and understanding. Be as good a version of yourself as you can be, because one person can make a difference. Thank you very much, folks. We will see you on October the 28th for Star Trek Prodigy Day. Lots of fun stuff happening there. But until I see you again, have a wonderful week. Make it so.